Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. Rest assured, if this is the first time you're tuning into all of this, welcome. This is the real side of freight. There is no theory on any of my content at all. On top of this, I do a twice a week long form podcast interview as well with other transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, you guys, we are here to talk about best practices. We are here to talk about how we can provide valuable information that you can apply, utilize, and see a meaningful difference in your business, in your life. It's one of the many reasons why I proudly fly this American flag behind me every single day. Is not only are we the greatest nation on earth, but I'm living my American dream, and I want to help each and every one of you guys live your American dream as well. We have a beautiful rainy day here in the desert today. It's kind of odd to see a 90% chance of rain all day long, but you know what? We can deal with it out here. We got some special articles that we're going to break down today. We're going to talk about some current events. But before we get into any of that, as always, you guys, I got to give a shout out to my friends over at VHub, vhubapp.com. Whether you're a broker, carrier, or a shipper alike, we all need access to trailers at some point in time. And the best part about this is you get paid to move these trailers. So if you're an owner op or you're a small fleet out there and one of your trailers is in the shop, you now do not have to shut your operation down for that. So what they're working on right now, you guys, is they have a dry van out in Paragould, Arkansas, a couple of dry vans needing to go out to Orting, Washington, just outside of Tacoma. And you get paid $15.50 to do that. That's on top of the revenue that you get by loading that trailer out. They also have up in Canada, Milton, Ontario to Montreal, Quebec for $250 Canadian. And then they have Galt, California. They have a dry van needing to go to Hutchins, Texas for $500 US. They have Winnipeg, Manitoba to Vaughan, Ontario for $500 Canadian. And then finally, they have a flatbed in Macomb, Mississippi, needing to go to Brighton, Colorado, and you get $1,600 US to do that. Again, that's on top of the revenue that you can get by loading that trailer out. So hit them up, you guys, vhubapp.com. My man Xavier Campos and my friend Stacy Steen, they will be in the audience. Just do me a favor. Let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. Dylan Turner, good fucking morning. Thank you for joining today. Sonny Sharma, Orange Shirt Gang, Monday in the house. Vitali, my guest on Friday, bridging the gap between Canadian and American relations there with the bald eagle and the maple leaf. Whitney Young, what's up? Good fucking morning, freight enthusiast. He says he's rocking the American flag in his comment, which I love to see. Louis, what's up? Good morning. Rolling dice is rolling, he says. Zach Williams, what's up, my man? Good morning, everyone. Hope you all have a strong start to the week. As always, you guys, if you guys want to become an independent freight agent and take control of your financial future, hit up my man Zach Williams and SPI Logistics. Join the team over there, you guys. Nathan Granada, good morning. He's got that U.S. flag going in his comment, too. I love it. Thanks for joining. Brandon Young, first time here, super excited. Thanks for joining the crew here, Brandon. It's the Orange Shirt Gang, as Sonny Sharma has officially coined that one out there. Papa Freight in the house. Good morning from Gateway. And Chandler in the rain. Time for some real news. That's exactly it, Steven. How great is it to have rain out here in the desert today, man? I love it. John Radvansky, Radman listening in. Fucking love that, man. Yeah, as you guys know, we did our 200 live show last Friday. So that would, I did go to public school, but I believe it's 201 now. 201st live show that we're doing here. And I'm also going to tie in with that, if, again, this is your first time tuning in, we continuously bring up real issues in this industry. And this ties into one of my favorite quotes by Martin Luther King. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day today. Shout out to MLK and everything that he did and stood for. And one of my favorite quotes that he says is, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. That is a very broad statement that covers a lot out there. But, when I'm tying it into our show here, things that matter to me and what we're going to continue to talk about has everything to do with safe and secure parking for drivers, adequate meals, adequate necessities that they need to survive out there on the road. Again, you guys, I come from a family of truck drivers. I still have family members driving today. I really know what's going on out there. and not like the facade that some people try and paint. There's some very real issues out there in this industry. And it's not just that affects the drivers, it's the blue collar workers as a whole. And with all of this, we're here to work on this to better all of that together. And that's what we stand for. I know that's what all these viewers who continuously tune in week in and week out stand for as well. Also, here is your subtle reminder that fuel is still an amazingly high $4.54 a gallon, which is up 90 cents year over year. I get all of that information from the EIA, you guys, EIA.gov. They release their fuel report every Monday afternoon. Well, today's a holiday, and we know that the government's not working today, so it'll be out tomorrow afternoon. So Wednesday is when I'll put up that updated fuel report out there. But yeah, Aaron, what's up? Great quote. Amen to that, Aaron. Good fucking morning from Phoenix. See, you guys, there's so many people out here who work in freight in Phoenix. Like we said, like Chicago is not the freight capital of America. Freight Alley, chat, everyone likes to say chat. Freight Valley, as my friends from Freight Vana coined a while ago. Freight Valley is actually the freight capital of North America, and that's Phoenix, Arizona. Just throwing that out there. If that hurts your feelings, that sounds like your problem. All right. With this being a solo show, I got a couple of guests later on this week, you guys, as always. Again, I'm working. I have a career that we're building up outside of this as well. So I try and be as concise and to the point in all of these shows that I can, but we will have some guests on here later on this week. But with it being a solo show, as always, I do a lane analysis when that happens. And again, these are complete random city to random city. This is anything planned at all. I literally just pulled this up before I went live. And this one has some major shifts going on over the last 90 days. And this is a reefer freight outbound Des Moines, Iowa to Richmond, Virginia. If we look at the 90-day lane cycle on this, it was at 363 with fuel to the truck. 60 days, it went a jump to 390. The 30-day mark jumped to 410. And again, you can tie in holiday freight. The last 15 days, it was at 414. Which again, you can kind of accommodate a little bit of the holiday into that. And then now it's at 436 a gallon. I'm sure weather has a lot to do with that because, you know, Iowa in January isn't necessarily the greatest time to be out there. But again, that's a healthy lane right now. If you're out there and you're moving it. And if you're a carrier right now, you're pretty happy with running outbound Des Moines freight because it looks like that market has started to increase in its rates exponentially from the looks of it. I haven't pulled a bunch of other freight lanes out of there, but it looks like that's a thing. Let's pull another one just randomly. We'll go Knoxville, Tennessee with my friends out at Axle Logistics right in their backyard. Yeah, that is very much, it's at 390 going to Knoxville. That one's kind of stayed stable over the last 90 days. But again, outbound reefer freight in Des Moines looks like it's the ticket right now. Yeah. All right. So we do have some articles to break down, as always. Oh, sorry about that. First article we're going to break down, you guys, is from ttnews.com. Oh, dude, Xavier Campos in the house, the Freight Coach Nation. Thanks for joining, Xavier. Hit him up, you guys. He's my boy over at VHub. All right, ttnews.com. Freight stakeholders press Congress for results. I think we all press Congress for results, but this is a transportation show. Anyways, with the 118th session of Congress underway, freight stakeholders are calling on lawmakers to prioritize proposals targeting supply chain connectivity and longstanding concerns associated with trucking workforce. Groups representing the trucking industry, commercial drivers, and transportation agencies point to the potential for advancing key issues over the next 2 years. The industry is focusing on metrics and goals under their purview of congressional transportation committees, including potential proposals related to fuel emissions, employee labor models, highway safety, and access to parking. The ATA, American Trucking Association's Executive Vice President for Advocacy, Bill Sullivan, said out there, in focusing on a dossier of doable policies, Sullivan said, how can we balance the goals of reducing emissions, reducing fuel, and still manage the supply chain that has the capacity to safely, securely, and at a reasonable cost deliver goods to all communities and businesses and homes that need freight? A key element of safety for truckers is finding a secure place to park for rest breaks, he said, which, again, you poll drivers, that is one of their top concerns. Insufficient parking has been a longstanding concern for firms operating in the metro hubs and commercial truck drivers often shared anecdotes about the challenges associated with parking. Stakeholders such as ATA have for years also sounded the alarm on the issue. I am sure we're going to tell a loud and proud story on truck parking. During the most recent congressional sessions, transportation leaders sought unsuccessfully to advance President Biden's desk more funding for truck parking projects. Sullivan expressed confidence about arriving at a resolution. Let me see here. I'm optimistic because what we are not doing is fighting a partisan fight. We understand that this system is one which people have to compromise and reach a consensus as a whole. Todd Spencer, he's the president of OIDA. Industry regulations linked to workforce behaviors and performance are front and center for his group. We consistently hear about the need to simply have access to the restroom, the lack of guaranteed overtime pay for truckers, and the threat of mandatory speed limiters. These are issues that make trucking profession less desirable and contribute to pathetic rates of driver retention, Spencer said. We look forward to working with our allies in Congress to keep experienced drivers in the industry, making our roads safer and our supply chain more efficient. Yeah, when it comes to that, again, if you're talking about driver pay as a whole, again, when you hear drivers work 14 hours a day. All right. That's essentially what it is. They can drive for 11. They can be on their clock for 14 hours a day. And if you look at the actual pay breakdown to it, are they really making money out there when the expectations are what they are? And then on top of that, they show up to places and there is no restroom for them to use. They refuse for them to leave, to let them go to a truck stop. Not everywhere. I know there's places where hey, we'll call you when we're ready. You can go to a truck stop. And that's awesome. I think that works. But again, you got to balance your e-logs at that point. It's not as simply as just writing in a logbook as you once did, because every little move that you make does that. So again, I would like to have that looked at where people can more effectively operate their logbooks so that if they do have to move, it doesn't count against their clock in that regard. So, again, like the sleeper berth rule, if you're not familiar with it, please go out there and research what sleeper berth is. I don't have time to do that on today's show. But again, look at the 7-3 split and stuff on what they can do to maximize their time. Throughout the early part of this year, stakeholders intend to share their policy agenda. The American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, for instance, is among the group that scheduled a meeting this winter with congressional leaders. Central to state departments of transportation is the implementation of the infrastructure. IIJA is what they're calling it. And let me see here. I'm paraphrasing a lot of this, you guys. Infrastructure. Sorry, some of the stuff that they talk about on infrastructure resilience. The Climate Action Campaign is among stakeholders calling on Congress to tackle what they deem is a crisis. The National Association of Manufacturers, along with groups representing business interests, express optimism about congressional leaders' capacity for improving the economic landscape for freight firms, competing to win policy, yada, yada, yada. For too long, the structures that support the movement of free enterprises and families have been frail and failing. As we work to ensure the law is implemented successfully, we also have to ensure that we take all necessary steps to keep supply chain running. And national and international supply chain disruptions have made painfully clear maintaining and modernizing our infrastructure is essential to keeping products moving and manufacturing operating. I would agree with that. I am a fan of the infrastructure bill for what it is geared to say. I'm not a fan of the amount that they passed, because when you actually peel back what it is, about half of that goes into our infrastructure. Because again, I want better roads. I want better airports. I want better ports. I want all of that for us. And again, we need to look at that and make sure that our money is going to actually support what these bills are intended to do. And again, it's supposed to create American jobs, which I am a massive fan of. It is supposed to put a light of fire under American manufacturing, which I am a fan of. American steel, American concrete, all of that stuff going into building our buildings and our roadways, I am a fan of. And if that's what is required, but again, we all know the discrepancies that go along with what some of these bills stand for at the end of the day. And for me personally, you can't tie in other issues to a bill that is geared towards the infrastructure. Again, because it's a completely separate issue. If you want to, you know, because again, like you can't sprinkle that stuff in my opinion. If you're going to introduce that bill and introduce it as a standalone bill, don't tie it all together and have it predicated on the fact that if this doesn't pass, this is why, you know, and that's what I just don't like about a lot of what goes on out there. Because again, I don't know of anybody who listens to my show who doesn't want more jobs in America, who doesn't want American made goods on our roads and creating all of that. You know, for me, that's what I want to see. Like, we should be completely self-reliant on literally everything out there. Let me see. You know, it goes on to a divided Congress has the potential for spirited debates on funding parameters, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, oversight on the Biden administration. You know, we won't go into any of that stuff on this show. But again, that article, you guys, ttnews.com, freight stakeholders press Congress for results. And yeah, that's what we need. We need results. We need actual change. We need to see a lot of this stuff coming through. All right. Let me see here. David K. What's up? Morning from New Jersey Ports. Happy MLK Day. Tiffany Martin in the house. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining in here, Tiffany. Nathan Gramada is putting carriage in front of the horse. Yeah, I feel you there, man. And then as this next article, you guys, is from fleetowner.com. Spot market returning to seasonal and normal after 2021 surge, 2022 slump. As always, you guys, any of these articles that I break down, I put them over on the YouTube channel, as well as the Coffee with the Freight Coach audio only replay, which is available on iTunes and Spotify. I put all those articles out there because, again, I want you guys to read up on these as well, put your own perspectives behind it. And if you guys do jump over to those platforms, do your boys solid, subscribe and share, rank the show, put that message out there, because that's how we're growing, you guys. That's how we have record growth month over month. It's because of each and every one of you who continuously show up and share the show out to your network. Because if you guys see value in this, your network's going to see value in this as well. Now on to the article. See, this is why, like, one of the first people I'm hiring this year is I need like a Jamie. If you guys follow Joe Rogan, you guys know that he's got Jamie who just like has stuff that he pulls up all the time. And when we're talking about how the market's returning to seasonal and normal, it's almost like a morning show guy who wears an orange shirt has been talking about here for a little bit, but it's breaking news now. You know, so getting ahead of the time a little bit. But again, you guys, like me personally, if I look back and again, take this with a grain of salt, but I've only moved 3 truckloads in my entire career, which is me being completely sarcastic. But I've been in this industry for 12 plus years, specifically as a broker. The market has literally performed in the exact same capacity in regards to a pattern in every year. All right. You can even throw in the last 2 years between 2020 and 2022. In the event that the cycles of it were, I would say that they were shortened and there were more dramatic shifts, but it still operated in a cycle. Some of them held on for a little bit longer than normal, and some of them were shorter lived than normal. But the fact of the matter is there are cycles that go on out there. And this year has all indications of it being a very normal freight cycle, which I talked about last week. And I've talked about at length on this show. And I know that some other people are now putting out there that, oh, hey, it looks like this is what's happening. This is how the market is going to operate. So if you poll what it was back in June, we'll say for easy math, because I went to public school, the last 6 months of 2022 was like the bottoming out. And now it's like if a market operates under the normal 18 to 24 month cycle, most of them last 18 months, is this year you're going to start to see an uptick. All right. And I'm calling it now, you guys. I got fucking receipts. I have all these recordings saved. I have everything saved. At some point this year, you will see tender rejections at an all-time high because people bid extremely low and competitive to win freight in Q1 and Q2. So the shippers that took advantage of a biannual bid this year, be prepared, because the later half of this year, you're going to see rate spikes. That's just the way it's going to go, because right now people bid super fucking aggressive in Q1. They bid super aggressive to win capacity. They need the revenue to show on their books, because some businesses only want to show revenue for, whatever reason. I'm not a stock trader or anything like that. But anyways, that's what's going to happen at some point. There will be a rebalance this year. So if you're out there on the spot market and you're a carrier and things, they're rough right now for you, you got to power through these next couple of months because it is going to rebound. The seasonality of this market will be in full force this year. So you got to hold through. You got to pull through, and you can stay in business in this market. All right. You can and will stay in business if you develop and adhere to a plan in Q1. All right. Now onto the article that I was supposed to be talking about. Sorry, I'm done with my soapbox there. Rather than surging or panicked or not sustainable, trucking industry experts and load board operators these days describe the spot market for freight as seasonal and returning to normal and recovering in the new year after it surged in 21, but slumped for much of last year. The spot market is normalizing. It really has been for the last 5 months, said Brent Hutto, he's with truckstop.com. Brent's a really good guy, by the way. DAT Freight and Analytics serves the dual mission as well. Dat IQ, and then its own load board, Dat1. Dean Croak, who's been on the show before, he's their principal analyst over there, says he sees spot and contract markets both declining, with rates falling in both, mostly because of current excess capacity after pre-holiday period and the holidays, which are generally the busiest time for freight. Even though demand is relatively flat, we've got more trucks than loads, and that's why rates will continue to go down through the first quarter. This quiet season will be quieter than normal because of the economic conditions we are working with, and mostly because there's an excess of capacity in the market against the backdrop of cooling demand, and that just puts more downward pressure on rates. That's why you're seeing spot rates continue to decline longer term. He added, however, contracted rates are doing the same, but we expect the bottom to happen at the end of first quarter in early Q2, and that market cycle reverts to capacity tightening and demand increasing, which coincides exactly with spring, which normally is beginning of the freight season, which, Dean and I talked about on the podcast when he was on a couple weeks back. Again, I'm aligned with what Dean's saying. We might have hit the bottom already. But again, at some point this year, and I believe his timeline of end of Q1, early Q2 is very accurate in when the rebalance is going to start taking into effect. Data out there bears out many of these trends, as there are two dominant players. Obviously, DAT and Truckstop are the dominant players in the space, operating the most trafficked load boards in freight. The week before, around the holiday, truckers saw a blip week on the spot market, especially refrigerated carriers. The total number of spot market loads out there rose 9%. Capacity is down, but spot market rates are up. Obviously, a lot of people sit home for the holidays, rightfully so. They wanted to take their break out there. In terms, there was van rates were up in November, and reefer was equal in November, and flatbed was actually 6 cents less. Let me see where the market's been versus where it's going. And this is what I wanted to talk about on here. The spot market continued a slump at the end of last year. Spot rates in November were lower. By the way, the data, the spot van rate fell 5 cents in November, for example, to 238 per mile, a 55 cent decline year over year. And all right, anyone who hauls freight has a choice in which marketplace contractor spot to find business. And bigger trucking companies, by and large, have some advantage in that they can contract with shippers out there. Smaller carriers and owner operators usually only have spot market to mine for freight to haul, or as high fuel costs have been hurting the owner operators, so they've got to make sure that they're getting those loads back. Again, for owner ops out there, if fuel is affecting your business right now, reassess your dedicated lanes. I'm a massive fan of owning your backyard, and then working local, for example, and kind of shifting up that policy. Maybe it's a regional market. That's the most underserved freight market that's out there. Everybody wants miles. All right. And again, I'm not here to tell anybody what to do in business, but I think most people would be pleasantly surprised on how profitable short haul freight can actually be if paired with the right partners on it. Because I know that that's generally the biggest problem for a lot of shippers is short haul and regional freight. Back to the article here, Hutto and Croak said that these conditions will lead shippers to weave their business through both contract and spot markets in innovative and maybe in even unprecedented ways. They can manage their costs when they do more strategic things. Croak said that's why we are seeing more spot market volume than we've seen historically before. Even though dry van business is down 40% compared to 21, it's the second highest level of load posts in the last 6 years. So again, if you remove the anomaly of the panic of what was going on over the last 6 years, it's kind of remained the same, so why is that? Because there's more volume getting into the spot market historically, and then it also goes on to say right now you've got a lot more shippers putting a lot more contract freight into the spot market, which is going to make spot rates start to increase when you push volume into that market. And that will drive the market cycle up through Q2. And he continued, the market has cooled off, demand has cooled off, rates dropped substantially in the spot market and started dropping mid-year to contracted levels. Spot rates lead contract rates by about 4 to 6 month lag. That's going on out there. So again, take that into consideration about what Dean is saying. The more and more freight that would be contracted is now either contracted at a very lower rate, or their shippers are just choosing to throw it out there in the spot market to find that price. But again, when you oversaturate one market, supply and demand, the balance will rebalance at some point in time. And then the market will start to tick back up. My guess is this year, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, this is going to be the most profitable year in freight, yada, 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 or any of that bullshit. But the reality is the market is going to start to rebound, and pay attention to that though. So again, I would also, if you want to minimize the volatility of what these last 6 to 8 months have given you, it is defining a core region to operate in, a core market to operate in. Again, my dad, as an owner op, he literally ran Minneapolis to the Bronx for like 35 straight years. That's literally all he did. He ran his region, and he had a pretty profitable business for a very long time, And I think that speaks volumes. I mean, some of the drivers that I'm working with right now, Freight Coach Logistics, they're regional. They're local. They don't do anything else. And they are very happy with doing that because there's a lot more stability in that. And there's a lot more local freight that moves than what's going on. So again, I'm a massive fan of regional freight. I think as a broker, if you're trying to break in with a new customer, obviously multi-drop loads are the easiest way because that's not a lot of people want multi-drop loads. But again, what's the least desirable freight that they have? You can't ask them that. But if they're moving on a regional basis or a short haul basis, I would all but guarantee they have issues with local freight. Okay. And I'm just, again, to take that with a grain of salt. I've only moved 3 truckloads in my career, which I'm being completely sarcastic on, but I'm being serious in that with that, you guys, like you can't go after power lanes because they don't need help on power lanes. Those are the most over commoditized freight rates. So if you're an owner op or a small fleet, everyone wants to fucking run Atlanta to Chicago. All right. Everyone wants to run Atlanta to Dallas. What can you go in a secondary market in that same region that's going to run more profitable, that there's going to be less competition on? That's where you're going to find healthier freight rates, and you're going to find those healthier freight rates year round because you're going to be able to contract out there and get a very consistent price where the shippers are going to be happy because you're removing the seasonal volatility of what goes on out there. So again, take that for what it's worth, you guys. That article was from Fleet Owner, and spot market returning to seasonal and normal after the 2021 surge and 2022 slump. We only had time to get to 2 articles today, you guys, and that's fine because I want to be respectful of all of your time because obviously you guys are all active and have jobs. I'm trying to build up my businesses as well, and I just want to be mindful of everybody's time. But we will be back tomorrow, the Freight Coach Morning Show. We are live every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central. And as always, you guys, if you guys saw value in this, share the show. Because if you guys see value in this, your network's going to see value in this as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.